Rick and Morty Corporate Assets Issue 1. Rick lands his spaceship in front of his house, and a bunch of little aliens jump out of it, and Morty complains relatably that he hates forced app updates on his phone, and says he likes getting cell phone games so he can enjoy a new experience for once. Rick doesn't trust free apps, and says he's the one being sold to someone else. And Morty agrees to the terms of service without reading them, since that's what everyone does without consequences. Finally wonders if they should be worrying about all the alien worms escaping their spaceship, and Rick doesn't care. Instantly, someone says Morty's full name, and some ridiculous-looking people come towards him, having tracked them down via helicopter and truck way too quickly to make sense. Maybe if they went through portals it would make sense. He's picked up and put in a helicopter and replaced with a robot because he and his likeness were made for the property of a corporation. I assume they don't have the technology to replace him with a clone instead. Morty wastes time wondering what they're gonna do to him, and gets told some information, including the fact that he's gonna get hunted for sports, and they think it has no value. I have to assume by the weird hairstyle of one of them and their stupid clothes that these guys are aliens. I have to assume the reason they're allowed to do this to him, aliens or not, is that their species doesn't care about humans. And they're not really humans. And I'm confused about why they replaced Morty with the most obvious robot in the world who's clearly not talking like himself. To be fair, since Rick can invent anything and cyborgize himself and Morty, I suppose Summer, who's not even looking at him, would assume this robot is a roboticized Morty first, before thinking got replaced by some unknown person. She could assume Rick did this for him so he'd survive on adventures easier. Since she's a typical teenager, all the robot has to do is tell her his account was rejected because he's lame to get her to sign up. So the kids at school won't think she got rejected from it. Jerry tells him that he has the afternoon free because his online therapist quit. And for some reason, Robot Morty says we were joining the Hand Jazzer app when only Summer did. Jerry wants to use it to prove he's cool. Summer gets mad at him because he somehow thinks her friends loved his challenges, even though he knows they sent him face palms. She calls him out, and Beth says something seems odd with Morty, but somehow, even though she's enough of a genius to be a horse surgeon, all she says about it is that he must have taken the horse pills in her purse. I guess she means that he's talking weird, and she shrugs off the bolts on him because she thinks Rick wanted to improve him, and of course everyone assumes he's got a deroboticizer. Rick calls him out on being stupid here, and naturally points out that if he made a robot Morty, it'd be identical to Morty to avoid a lecture about his getting Morty killed. And they should already know that. Then he says she's bad at parenting, and I assume it's because she didn't know he wasn't a Morty right away. He said if parenting was a course, she'd still be repeating pregnancy. So I guess he must have been told that she wasn't very good at handling being pregnant. It's not like Morty has fetal alcohol syndrome, so I really don't know what she did wrong. So all the robot has to do is tell her she can show him what good parenting is, so she says she'll sign up for the app to humor Morty. While they were easily manipulated into signing up for the app, I'm still impressed that it wasn't completely forced that it happened. All of these characters are supposed to be idiots. Morty explained why it was in character for him, it's in character for Summer, and Beth got doubted into it because she's got an ego and wants to prove herself all the time. Like how she really wanted to prove she could save a deer. So I guess that's in character too. He presses an invisible button on his head, causing a red light to emit from it and kill the robot, and fortunately apologizes and says that was just the fastest way to prove he was right. And that really would be a genius, brilliant move if the robot was actually able to attack them or try to capture him, because what he did was defeat it before it could actually be a problem. Beth wonders what's going on and she looks upset, and so does Summer, because they care about Morty when it gets right down to it. Rick hands out ray guns for Beth and Summer and amusingly says, "Try not to get replaced by robots while I'm gone." He just has a lot of faith in them. And he doesn't care enough to give Jerry weapons, lies hypocritically and leaves with grenades, telling him that he's finally the man of the house to reassure him. Morty gets dropped into a place with other people. There's insanely boring panels where a woman full of herself starts talking and thinks she matters because she's a celebrity. And finally, Morty speaks for the audience that there's no way it's legal to put him through this. Someone agrees, which is surprising because I thought he wasn't on Morty's side. He says Morty agreed to have any legal disagreement settled by an arbiter. Why was that in the terms of service if they thought they could get away with having anything in them? Also, wouldn't anyone in charge of the App Store have to read the terms of service of every ad? Morty demands an arbiter, and a big guy with a silly costume shows up. But he doesn't help Morty like an arbiter should. Although he does give the so-called losers a 3-minute head start. You'd think they would have gotten it anyways because they're gonna be hunted for sport. Don't foxes get a head start in fox hunting? I think Tails and the other fox cubs got a head start when they were being hunted in Fleetway. Then Rick punches through a portal with an awesome metal glove to kill someone. I get him wanting to feel the satisfaction of defeating them with his own fist, but if he simply opened and closed portals over them all while he was safe on the other side of the portal, he would have been guaranteed to win with no risk of himself being kidnapped. But again, it's believable stupidity, because he's angry and has Project Phoenix and is a badass cyborg, so he has every reason to think going here himself will work out for him. He doesn't know this was written to be a 4-parter. If it weren't for that, if it was actually in the show, he'd be guaranteed to win. Then we see him get a hunter caught in a net, tie someone up, and run up to some more hunters with a sword, and activate a force field that has someone with a flame sword burn himself just because he tried to hit the force field. Someone turns himself into a werewolf, and Rick's already getting impatient with how long this is taking. Eventually, Morty gets shot but wonders why he's not dead, as it looks like he has blue blood. But he finds out he was shot with a paintball gun. At first it looks like it's going to reveal that it was all just a paintball match, but since this is Rick and Morty, they decided that'd be too lame for a creative twist. So no, he really is planning to kill them. Finally, Rick saves Morty. It's annoying that he says he should have given a pro gamer a lamer death. I know he's played video games before. I think he played Minecraft in the show. And yeah, he really didn't have to kill one of the kidnapped people too. For no reason at all. The portal he expects Morty to go into isn't the portal back home, when he just got kidnapped. Oh no, then this wouldn't be a 4-parter. Instead, it's just a portal to the party bar still on the planet. Even though I assume he has tons of alcohol at home already. Again, Rick's confident and reckless all the time, so it's in character, but he's also supposed to care about Morty more than he's willing to admit, so you'd think after a close call where he almost lost him, he just wanted to stay on Earth at home for the rest of the day. Not have a facepalm-worthy moment. He gets stuck to the wall by flying metal things that I feel could have easily not been sent at him, and this reminds me of what happened to Tails in Sonic the Continuation early on. Gluty was the one who did this, and he's the CEO of GlomCon now. It makes sense because he made an evil app in the show. But I'm waiting for an explanation for how he knew to be here, and I'm not getting one. So I just have to assume he predicted Rick would come here because it's the party bar, and he knows Rick can't resist that. But the thing is, Rick could have just put a portal below the party bar stuff to have it fall into bed at home. Not to mention he'd only have a good excuse for this if he was out of all the stuff in the party bar. So there's literally no excuse for him to get captured if he had no plans here after taking this stuff. Morty makes a mistake by saying he's the one who gets to have revenge here when he should be just taking action and not giving the guy a warning. He grabs the portal gun and makes an impossible mistake by throwing it towards him expecting it to be a grenade, even though he knows what a portal gun looks like by heart, and it looked nothing like a bomb. Portal juice isn't the same shade of green as a grenade. I thought there'd be a good reason for the villains to get Rick's portal gun because Rick and Morty wouldn't be in the same room with him when it happened. It would have made sense if he got it from his garage. He could have gotten a spare portal gun from his garage. Instead, it wasn't impressive for the villain, ruining the point of writing it. He obviously would have just summoned a portal below Glotty to send him away, if he didn't get the idea to shoot a portal to where he's standing and close it on him. In one of the Rick and Morty comics, Morty literally shot Rick with a portal. So obviously Morty is capable of thinking to do that. In all the time Morty would be taking to grab away the portal gun and point at him, in that second, Glotty might have time to jump or run away from where he's going to spawn the portal. Glotty would be running towards him after that. And Morty could still run away and enter the portal, but he'd have to ditch Rick and leave Glotty there. A portal gun can only make 2 portals at a time because the one portal connects to the other. For him to save Rick after going away and then going home, he'd have to spawn a portal below Glotty to send him falling into the place he'll be at, and then go to Rick to get advice on how to free him, like with the laser pistol from his garage. And they'd go home, and then they'd have ended the story arc. However, this all depends on how much portal fluid is left. If Morty ran out of portal fluid during all of that, then he would be able to save Rick. Maybe that should have been written. The point is, Morty should have just been knocked out or hit in the ribs or something to get the portal gun from him. He should have run towards him in a blind rage trying to hit him a lot, which he'd do as a teenager to get the most satisfying revenge. Hell, just keeping it simple and having Glotty dodge the portal he'd shoot at him would make more sense. I mean, it would be blatantly telegraphed as an attack. But at least this is the first time the issue's had truly terrible writing. So for it to take until now for the writing to suck is a good indication of the issue's quality, at least compared to really bad comics. He makes a portal to send Morty and Rick away, and then someone shows morality by wondering if he should contact people's families first. Then he dismisses him and goes through a different portal, wanting to create content. If it's content people will enjoy, good. It's good for him to have the portal gun as long as it doesn't mean killing. I assume what he's gonna do with the portal gun, because he said creating content, is go to different dimensions and videotape them to make a lot of money, because that would be common sense for him to do. It turns out Rick and Morty are in a desert, and Rick completely jumps to the conclusion that this is a world with screwed up physics, where there's no tech and civilization, but all Rick knows about it is this one little desert that reminds you of food, because obviously a witch made it. He shouldn't be despairing that there's no way to make another portal gun. It looks like they're walking around just fine, and their bodies aren't instantly dying, so obviously the physics aren't that different. They're not floating around. Besides, he revealed he has portal fluid contained in one of his teeth in the second Dungeons & Dragons arc, and while I doubt the writer knew about that and thinks of it as canon to this because it's IDW, the fact remains that that was a very good point. Rick should be smart enough to always have some spare portal fluid with him. But again, Rick's reckless by nature, so things could go either way with him being smart or stupid. My point is that if Rick had portal fluid already, all he needs to do is make something to contain it and have electricity in it, and he can make a portal gun here. Summer sees Glotty go up to her through a portal with the guy with the weapon behind him. The thing in front of Jerry gets shot by 2 weapons at once, and then Glotty says they come in peace, as I'm still wondering why he doesn't get rid of the tattoo on his forehead. It's like he literally doesn't care about his dignity. He says it's time for him to strip mine Rick and Morty for profit until there's nothing left. Jerry gets glared at for saying that's cool, so he should have been quiet. But since he has every reason to hate Rick, I can't blame him for thinking it'll be cool for someone else to profit off the technology he's been hoarding selfishly. It'll be a good thing, making people happy. There's a lot of technology that I'm sure it should have been shared with people, especially cybernetics. It's only going to be a problem if Glotty gets a technology that's got huge negative consequences if it falls into the wrong hands. I'll do a summary of my opinion of the arc at the end of the next video. Rick and Morty Corporate Assets Issue 2. Unfortunately, the issue starts with an evil bird person kicking someone for no reason as there's fire outside for no reason, saying that they might be resurrected in cyborg service of a new Galactic Federation. Bird person says that in his culture, it's males who incubate the eggs. Some panels are wasted until we see some more cyborg versions of people Rick knew, and Mr. P says they're blocking Summer's signal to Rick. I guess these people aren't really the old characters, just other universe counterparts of them. It's just hollow fan service. Not that I don't appreciate seeing them again. Jaguar threatens to send them away with a portal gun piece by piece, which is at least a very smart plan for a villain with access to portals. A portal shows up, and Morty jumps through it, punching everyone evil, saying that if you mess with one Morty, you mess with all of them. Then a Morty with an eye patch shows up, saying there's a lot to explain about himself, and the truth about Summer. It'll be lame if we don't find out what that is. Isn't that evil Morty? Why would he be here? It's more likely to be a different Morty with an eye patch, but it'd be weird to write it as not evil Morty. The next page is really boring to read. Gluty hired terrible writers from Hollywood, and then even he wonders why Morty has an eye patch. And someone says you have to get the tie-in game to find out. Gluty says that's great storytelling, but no one would ever think that. He's just there to make fun of writers that suck. Then Gluty asks someone how his consumer products are coming along. A woman who looks great in Rick's lab coat says she's got grappling shoes. Gluty says they have a deal to make a sneaker line already. Grappling shoes would be dangerous anyways, because you'll be going to a huge height with them. She wants to merchandise the Butterbot. She compliments the microverse battery, but complains because it's powered by slavery. Well, I get why Morty said that because he's a young idiot. The people in the multiverse are being paid. They even have the same rights and lives as normal people. So if even they don't think of themselves as slaves, I don't see how they are. So I don't know why this person thinks it's an unmarketable invention because of moral grounds on that front. It'd still solve the energy crisis if they could replicate it. She should be saying that it'd still be more moral to make power up an uninhabited planet in the microverse that's populated only by robots, not sentient life who would wish they were getting extra money as compensation for powering a spaceship, which is probably what Morty tried to say and failed to make that point. But something's not immoral just because you didn't do something better. By that logic, it'd be immoral to do anything when you could be serving at a soup kitchen instead. She has a better argument when she says they can't replicate the technology. Are his blueprints to it lying around? I suppose not, because he would have had this for decades, and he's changed universes before. Gluty says smartly that he could license the look of the microverse battery to make portable chargers that look like it. Then the woman asks if he's sure the team shouldn't try to study the portal gun. I want to know more about the good tech Rick's made being mass-produced for people. I want to see the good results of that. I don't want it to end here. Gluty says he has his own plans for it. To be fair, he can't use them for those plans if they're studying it. Again, I'm being too impatient to wait until they're done studying, when that could take literally his whole life because they're so behind Rick in what they know about science. Still, there's no reason he shouldn't give these guys a little bit of the portal fluid. He has no idea what he's in for if he goes to other planets with that thing. Really, he should get himself killed if he's dumb enough to risk that. Well, it is gross. I like seeing an alien have a mouth on its back with a long purple tongue in it that can rip off a part of a blue leaf because it's sticky. I like that because it's taking advantage of it being an alien planet by being weird. Scientists have theorized that it could be possible for there to be blue plant life. Rick explains that he's in a magical dimension with chemicals that aren't from the periodic table, somehow. I don't know why he says our periodic table isn't real. Sure, it's convenient that their bodies aren't causing an explosion or instantly poisoning them from chemical reactions with the stuff around them then. Not to mention they're gonna be doomed to dehydrate to death. Then his device ends up exploding. And he tells Morty to get rid of everything because it got irradiated in an unstable environment. Why? Just because they're made of metal? It's obvious that you can only get irradiated if there's radiation around you, so they're gonna have to treat themselves for radiation poisoning after this. And I'm sure Rick can do that, but it's gonna be weird that the arc won't mention they're gonna do that. Rick and Morty have metal in them because they're cyborgs. Rick's got plenty of body modifications in Morty, so you'd think Morty would be melting into great goo. I say Morty himself because in the show, Rick said while Morty was breathing in space along with him that he child-proofed Morty, which can only mean that Morty is sort of a robot. After a page I don't like, Beth gets talked to by people with boring dialogue. We're seeing this instead of people benefiting from Rick's technology. Someone thanks her and asks her what her value is. Summer says Rick and Morty aren't the only ones fighting through incredible experiences, and she reveals she's a queen in 9 different civilizations and caused 18 extinctions. Jerry doesn't know what his value is, but at least he's eager to help. Since Beth is overconfident, she thinks her value is that she birthed one of them, even though Summer was an accident and Jerry talked her into keeping her. And she wouldn't have ever killed the replacement Morty anyways. So like Jerry, she doesn't really have value to the Rick and Morty brand other than when she contributes on Rick's misadventures. Summer gets told they want to turn her into an influencer across content platforms. And she's told she needs someone paying to get her into their recommended content, even though she might not enjoy it. Buying meaningless bot followers, then commissioning online profiles about how quickly she's becoming an influencer. So that's meaningless. She's told cynically that only famous, toxic, and hot people can become influencers. Jerry's going to be made the lead of market research. He was working on someone who created slogans after all. Based on their tests, he's the lowest common denominator, so he really is perfect for teaching them how to please idiots. The logic has to be that most people are the lowest common denominator, and so making the most amount of money has to be only appeasing them. Smart people will go elsewhere for good content, take their money with them though. Obviously, actual talent would please both idiots and smart people. I understand their logic because stuff like the Twilight movies made a whole bunch of money and made sequels, but there's also very financially successful, actually good franchises. Beth says she's been through enough therapy to know that she hates how Rick chooses to disappear for unknown lengths of time, even if she loves him for always coming back. I don't like that one of these people is smirking at her. She's told that she's great for them because she's damaged and honest about it. But literally any daughter would have problems with what Rick is doing. That doesn't make her damaged or neurotic on its own. She'd qualify if she was different from everyone else who would be in that position. She's told she'd be the perfect lead for her own cable series and says she will star in it just to show the world they're wrong about her, because it's just like her to be defensive. Thankfully, she does admit that she sounded neurotic and damaged, because this is a good comic, not one that lacks self-awareness about itself. Beth tells her family they should just go along with it and they're happy, which is smart of them. Rick and Morty do boring bickering where they talk too much, being carried by a flying alien with tentacles around them. The alien ends up defeated, and they jump on a floating platform as Rick complains about cell phone games. Morty says, "What's wrong with having stuff that reminds you of something you enjoyed? And that puts money in the pocket of the person who created the thing that made you happy." Rick says a dozen companies are what it takes to license, make, sell, and ship the stuff he buys, and they don't actually save any payday for the artist behind a book. We see a Mr. Meeseeks get shrunken down and put in an envelope with a lot of others like him because his job is to wait in there until he's bought and given a job to do. He hates it because obviously that means he was already given his task, which will be fulfilled only when he's bought, and he's scared that it'll take days for that to happen. These people are too ignorant to realize that they'll disappear the second they are bought, because they'd be done waiting to get bought. And I have to assume they told these people that, but they went into denial instead of believing them for some reason. I don't know why it's being handled like this. Oh right, it's because they don't know how to mass produce Mr. Meeseeks boxes. So they have to settle for mass producing Meeseeks with the one box. But they'll learn soon enough that the only way to get this to work is if they wait until someone's bought a Meeseeks before summoning it for them. A lot of good can come out of that, but it's still not something that should happen because a lot of people are going to get killed by Meeseeks who couldn't complete their task. According to the Mr. Meeseeks issue in Rick and Morty Presents, they're kind of omniscient, like they know knowledge they shouldn't have, so maybe they can't do things that require a lot of skill and knowledge and experience. You can make a whole story right there about all the different consequences from this. Someone complains that the company bought out its video game startup to force the people working on it into a time crunch to reskin the game to have Rick, gross aliens, and microtransactions. I can't blame him for complaining. This whole page is a bunch of kick the dog moments for the villains. It's too bad, because without those moments it could have easily not been there. There are people that really should get to do all of this because a lot of people will benefit from Rick's technology. Summer's doing a video on the new logo for the new Rick and Morty movie. She thinks the idea of a whole video about a logo drop is stupid. I like that she said this in the video itself. I don't like that I can't see how she feels about the logo because I don't even know if she's seen it yet. She could have easily been shown the logo by a screen. Instead, I don't know if she's even sincere. She wonders how these guys expect to have a movie out by this Friday. Glitty says that if they film a generic story entirely on a green screen, they can add whatever is testing well at the last minute. Won't that result in a bad, incoherent story because it wasn't thought through from beginning to end? I wonder if it would be cheaper to make a CGI movie. Glitty says they just need a few scenes where someone learns to believe in themselves. Oh, like in Mega Man Worlds Unite Battles, where a whole scene was like that? A few scenes where someone learns to believe in themselves also reminds me of the Mario movie. So it would be pretty lame to say that that's literally all its plot should be. Imagine how basic the plot of the Rick and Morty movie would be if it was just that. Why is Jerry ordering 2 movie tickets when no one goes to the movie with him? Rick shows just how smart he is. Or at least he's trying to right now. Because he's immediately trying to figure out what he can make of the chemicals on this planet based on what remains of an alien we didn't get to see how he killed. He says that mixing that chemical compound with another makes electricity. So he wants to make a universal distress signal to any Ricks who might be in this universe. I guess he's assuming their Morty would nag them into saving him, which is the only chance he's got. But that only applies to the Ricks that care enough to humor their Morty instead of being so abusive that they'd be fine with putting duct tape on their mouths or pressing a button to mute them. I've seen in Evil Morty's final episode that a lot of Ricks care so little about their Morty that they kill them just for fun. It'd make more sense if a Morty alone came to save them. He's talking like most Ricks are heroes. The distress signal gets sent. And I think about the fact that he'd be more successful if he could make a multiversal signal. But I guess that's impossible right now. But if he did, he'd see infinite Ricks and Mortys telefragging themselves to death by portaling to the same location to save him. Which could actually happen just from having a universal signal. Because there could be a huge amount of Ricks and Mortys already in the universe as it is. So what are the chances that only one Rick would show up? Let alone that a Rick would go through the portal instead of a Morty, trying to be a hero on his own because he cares and Ricks don't. Out of nowhere, Morty complains that Rick's not doing anything new. What are you talking about? When's the last time Rick tried to get another Rick to rescue him? But he is right that it's not creative to bring in another Rick. But right now I'm just thankful that they're trying to escape. It's already creative that they made this signal with completely different chemicals from the universe. The other Rick shows up and is happy to help them, and there isn't even another Morty there. Rick kills him with an alien heart and Morty calls him out on it. So why the hell would the portal he walked through disappear just because of that? Logically they could still go through it and escape. The only reason it would disappear is because his Morty was on the other end of the portal and pressed the portal button because he didn't want them going through the portal, because he was afraid of them. So Morty was forced to complain in the last page about this being boring, when all he would care about is going home, just to force the arc to last longer than it should, because he didn't keep his mouth shut when he should have. What did he think was gonna happen? To be fair, Rick has every reason to be arrogant enough to assume he could get himself home without relying on other Ricks, if he's able to use the chemicals from this world for such an amazing thing this quickly. He reminds me of Eggman in this arc. But he's not a stupid buffoon who gets betrayed a lot, and he's extremely competent on paper. So I'm willing to be patient with Rick when he makes a mistake, and reminded me of Eggman just has to be easy for me to understand him, and comes out in his favor because he's usually better than Eggman. Rick says it would be a real corporate mentality to reuse ideas. I'd love to see him react to Ian Flynn's stories. Rick says he won't let them escape by exploiting old ideas. And they don't deserve to escape unless they're capable of coming up with new ones. Taking a gamble there as Morty has no faith in him, even though he's a genius. He's still being impossibly stupid by throwing his lab coat away. If there's amazing technology in there, and he's definitely already planning to make technology, what are the chances he's gonna make technology he's never made before to escape? If he's gonna send a signal anyways, that's still going with his old idea. He's still sending a signal to somebody. It's not like the lab coat melted, so I would assume there isn't amazing technology in it. It's weird that he puts his arm around Morty with his eyes closed. These were the only two good issues of the arc, which is pretty sad.